It's the year 2135. Earth is facing its greatest crisis yet, a food shortage unlike anything seen in human history. With overpopulation, climate change, and soil depletion rendering traditional farming nearly impossible, humanity has run out of time. Natural food sources are scarce, and artificial substitutes are expensive and unsustainable. Billions face starvation, and the global economy is on the brink of collapse. Amid this chaos, one announcement captures the world's attention: a future where no one goes hungry is finally here. The statement comes from Project OmniDiet, a top-secret government initiative spearheaded by renowned scientist Dr. Elias Carter. Charismatic and brilliant, Dr. Carter has spent the last decade working on a radical solution to the food crisis: a serum capable of transforming the human digestive system itself. Once injected, the OmniDiet serum would allow the body to break down any material, wood, plastic, metal, or even toxic waste, and convert it into usable energy. The promise is simple but revolutionary: humans will be able to eat anything. In a dramatic public address, Dr. Carter elaborates: nature has always limited our survival to specific food sources. But no more. With the OmniDiet serum, we will redefine human biology. Hunger will be eradicated. Starvation will become a story of the past. To prove the serum's effectiveness, Dr. Carter reveals that human trials are already underway. 3 volunteers, Sophia Gray, Malik Chen, and Eva Santos, have agreed to participate. Each of them comes from different backgrounds but shares a common motivation: they want to be part of something that could save humanity. The plan is simple yet risky. For the next 30 days, they will consume nothing but materials previously considered inedible. Their progress will be monitored closely, with updates shared to the public in real time. As the experiment begins, the world is split between hope and fear. Some view the serum as humanity's salvation. Others call it a dangerous gamble with human life. And a few whisper dark conspiracy theories about hidden government agendas. But no one, not even Dr. Carter, is prepared for what happens next. This bold experiment will not only test the limits of human biology, it will also challenge the very definition of what it means to be human. And by the end of 30 days, the world will never be the same. The sun rose over the desert, casting long shadows across Genesis Labs, the state-of-the-art research facility where the OmniDiet experiment was about to begin. The world watched with bated breath as 3 volunteers prepared to embark on a journey that could change the course of humanity. Inside the sterile confines of the lab, Sophia Gray, Malik Chen, and Eva Santos sat in separate observation rooms, each facing their own thoughts and fears. They had all agreed to participate in this bold endeavor, fully aware that the risks were immense. Dr. Elias Carter, the lead scientist and mastermind behind the project, stood behind a thick glass window, observing them closely. The volunteers were injected with the OmniDiet serum, a pale blue liquid that shimmered under the harsh fluorescent lights. It contained nanomachines and genetically engineered proteins capable of rewriting human biology at the cellular level. Once the injections were complete, Dr. Carter addressed them through an intercom, reassuring them that everything was proceeding according to plan. He reminded them that their first meal, consisting of wood chips and synthetic plastic pellets, would be served within the hour. The volunteers, though nervous, were ready to take the first step. Sophia Gray, a 28-year-old biochemist with a tragic past, had volunteered in hopes of preventing future hunger-related deaths like the one that claimed her younger brother. Malik Chen, a former engineer, was driven by a desire to escape the poverty of his past and earn the financial reward promised to all participants. Eva Santos, once an athlete and now an environmental activist, saw the experiment as a symbol of humanity's resilience. Despite their differing motivations, all three shared the same goal: to help solve the global food crisis. An hour after the injections, the first meal arrived. Dr. Carter's voice crackled over the intercom, instructing them to begin eating. Sophia was the first to take a tentative bite of a wood chip. The texture was strange, but it quickly broke down in her mouth. To her surprise, it tasted bland rather than repulsive. Within moments, she felt a burst of energy surge through her body. She continued eating, and the hunger that had gnawed at her earlier began to fade. Malik followed suit, consuming plastic pellets without hesitation. The sensation was odd, but he felt no nausea or discomfort. Eva took her time, savoring the experience. By the end of the meal, all three reported feeling energized and surprisingly full. As the hours passed, subtle changes began to manifest. Sophia noticed an increase in her physical strength and heightened senses. She could detect faint chemical traces in her surroundings that had previously gone unnoticed. Malik experienced a strange warmth spreading through his limbs. His body temperature rose, but rather than feeling feverish, he felt invigorated. Eva's skin began to change, turning slightly translucent under the lab's bright lights. Despite these changes, none of them felt ill or alarmed. The initial results seemed promising. By the second day, the transformations had accelerated. Sophia woke up feeling stronger than she ever had before. Her muscles, already toned from years of working in a lab, seemed denser, and her reflexes had become lightning fast. When she bit into a piece of aluminum foil provided as part of a controlled test, her teeth pierced it effortlessly. Malik experienced a different change. After drinking motor oil during breakfast, his body emitted a faint electromagnetic pulse that briefly disrupted nearby electronic equipment. Eva's transformation was even more dramatic. Her skin had become almost fully translucent, revealing a delicate network of veins beneath the surface. Exposure to sunlight now filled her with a euphoric sense of energy. As the transformations continued, the volunteers began to grapple with their new abilities. Sophia found herself craving metal. She tried to resist, but the hunger was insatiable. One afternoon, she bit into a steel pipe, feeling a rush of satisfaction as it crumbled between her teeth. Malik's electromagnetic pulses became stronger and more erratic. The more synthetic materials he consumed, the more energy he seemed to generate. However, he had no control over the pulses, which caused several lab computers to crash. Eva discovered that her body was now capable of photosynthesis. She no longer needed traditional food to survive, relying instead on sunlight to sustain her. However, this new ability came with a price. Her skin had become so sensitive to light that prolonged exposure caused intense pain. By the end of the first week, the experiment had reached a critical turning point. Sophia's cravings for metal grew more intense. One night, unable to resist, she snuck into a storage room and consumed an entire steel beam. The act triggered a violent metabolic reaction, causing her heart rate to spike dangerously. Malik's condition also worsened. His electromagnetic pulses became so powerful that he inadvertently knocked out an entire section of the lab's power grid. Despite the scientists' efforts to stabilize him, his body temperature continued to rise. Eva's transformation reached a new stage as well. Her skin began to emit a faint bioluminescent glow, and her vision sharpened to the point where she could see in near total darkness. Dr. Carter observed these changes with a mix of fascination and concern. He had expected some level of adaptation, but the speed and severity of the transformations were far beyond his predictions. Government officials overseeing the project began to express doubts. They had funded the OmniDiet experiment to solve the food crisis, not to create superhuman anomalies. Tensions within the lab escalated, and rumors of possible termination orders spread among the staff. Despite the growing danger, the volunteers were determined to continue. Sophia, driven by her desire to prove that humanity could overcome hunger, refused to give up. Malik, though struggling with the instability of his powers, saw his transformation as a chance to break free from the limitations of his old life. Eva, despite the physical toll, felt an unshakable connection to the natural world. She believed her new abilities were not a curse, but a gift. As the sun set on day 7, one thing was clear: the experiment was no longer just about survival. It had become a test of identity, resilience, and the boundaries of human evolution. And as the world watched with a mixture of hope and fear, the fate of the volunteers and humanity itself hung in the balance. By day 14, the transformations within the 3 volunteers had intensified beyond what anyone had anticipated. Sophia Gray, Malik Chen, and Eva Santos had each undergone changes so profound that the scientific team struggled to keep up with their evolving conditions. What had begun as a bold experiment to eliminate hunger was now shifting into uncharted territory. Genesis Labs, once a place of order and control, had become a powder keg of fear and uncertainty. Sophia's hunger had reached terrifying new levels. Her cravings for metal were no longer just a dietary adjustment, they were an obsession. She no longer waited for meal times to be served controlled rations. Instead, she scoured the facility for anything she could find: pipes, scrap metal, and even parts of furniture. Her physical strength had grown to superhuman proportions. The metallic sheen of her skin had deepened, and her teeth were now harder than diamond, capable of crushing steel as if it were paper. During one routine observation, a technician accidentally dropped a steel wrench on the floor. Before anyone could react, Sophia snatched it up and bit into it, her eyes wide with an unsettling mix of desperation and euphoria. Dr. Carter confronted her after the incident, urging her to exercise control. Sophia, panting from her latest feeding frenzy, barely registered his words. "You don't understand," she said, her voice strained. "It's not just hunger anymore. It's a need. If I don't eat, it feels like my body is collapsing in on itself." The medical team tried to monitor her vitals, but Sophia's reflexes were now so quick that she could evade even their most sophisticated sensors. That night, an alarm blared through the facility as Sophia broke into a secured storage room and consumed an entire steel frame. She fled into the desert before security could stop her, leaving twisted metal remnants in her wake. Malik's condition was just as alarming, though in a different way. His ability to absorb and generate energy had reached dangerous levels. The faint electromagnetic pulses he emitted on day 2 had grown into full-blown surges capable of knocking out entire sections of the lab's power grid. Malik discovered that with concentration, he could create controlled bursts of electromagnetic energy strong enough to fry cameras and disable locks. Despite the scientists' warnings, Malik began experimenting with his newfound powers in secret. He viewed them not as a threat, but as a gift and opportunity to transcend the limits of his old life. But with every surge of power, Malik's body paid a steep price. His temperature remained dangerously high, and he experienced violent headaches and sudden blackouts. One afternoon, during a monitored test, Malik accidentally triggered an electromagnetic pulse so powerful that it sent 3 lab assistants flying across the room. The lights in the entire facility flickered and died, plunging Genesis Labs into darkness for nearly an hour. Malik sat on the floor, shaking, as the medical team rushed to stabilize him. "I can't stop it," he whispered. "It's like there's too much energy inside me, and it's trying to tear me apart." Despite the mounting risks, Malik refused to back down. "This power is mine," he told Dr. Carter. "I'm not giving it up." Eva Santos had become almost unrecognizable. Her skin, now fully translucent, revealed a network of greenish-blue veins beneath the surface. She no longer required traditional food at all, relying solely on sunlight for energy. During the day, Eva felt invincible. Her speed and agility were unmatched, and she could perceive subtle changes in her environment with astonishing clarity. But as night fell, Eva's body began to deteriorate. Without sunlight to sustain her, she became weak and sluggish, and her bioluminescent glow intensified. Eva's connection to the natural world deepened with each passing day. She began experiencing strange visions, images of lush forests overtaking barren deserts, vines wrapping around crumbling cities, and entire ecosystems springing to life in desolate wastelands. She confided in one of the scientists, telling them that she no longer felt entirely human. "It's like I'm becoming something else," she said. "Something more connected to the earth, but less tethered to humanity." One night, Eva collapsed in her room, writhing in pain. Her veins pulsed with light, and her skin emitted a faint, eerie glow. The medical team rushed to her side but could do little to help. Eva's body had begun to photosynthesize even in darkness, a process that left her exhausted and disoriented. She withdrew from the other volunteers, retreating into a state of isolation. When Dr. Carter attempted to speak with her, Eva merely stared at him with eyes that seemed almost otherworldly. "I'm changing," she said softly. "And I'm not sure if I can come back." While the volunteers grappled with their transformations, Dr. Carter made a shocking discovery. Late one night, he reviewed the original research data for the OmniDiet serum and found hidden files that had been buried deep within the system. The serum had not been designed solely to allow humans to consume inedible materials. Its true purpose was far more radical. It was engineered to trigger rapid evolutionary leaps. The government, desperate to solve the food crisis, had secretly authorized the serum's development in hopes of creating a new species of humans, one that could survive in any environment, consume any substance, and adapt to a rapidly changing world. Dr. Carter was horrified. The volunteers were not just test subjects, they were the first prototypes of a post-human species. The transformations they were experiencing were not accidental side effects. They were the intended outcome of the serum's design. And now, with the experiment spiraling out of control, there was no telling how far those transformations would go. News of the experiment's true purpose leaked to the public, sparking outrage and fear. Conspiracy theories spread like wildfire, claiming that the government had created monsters in its quest for survival. Protesters gathered outside Genesis Labs, demanding that the experiment be shut down immediately. Inside the facility, tensions reached a boiling point. The scientists were divided. Some wanted to halt the experiment and try to reverse the transformations, while others believed it was too late to stop the process. As day 14 came to a close, the volunteers stood on the precipice of an uncertain future. Sophia had vanished into the desert, driven by an insatiable hunger. Malik teetered on the edge of self-destruction, his body overflowing with uncontrollable energy. Eva, caught between two worlds, faced a transformation that was both beautiful and terrifying. And all the while, the world watched, waiting to see whether humanity's boldest experiment would lead to salvation or disaster. By day 21, Genesis Labs was no longer a place of scientific curiosity. It had become a fortress. Security forces surrounded the facility, while government officials debated what to do with the escalating crisis inside. Sophia Gray, Malik Chan, and Eva Santos had transformed beyond recognition, each evolving into something extraordinary and terrifying. As the world watched, humanity's future teetered on the edge of chaos. Sophia, now a figure of myth in the public imagination, remained at large in the desert. Surveillance drones had captured fleeting images of her skin now fully metallic, her eyes glowing with a cold, steely intensity. Her strength had become almost limitless. In one encounter, she crushed a boulder with a single strike. Yet what worried the scientists most wasn't her physical power, it was her growing instability. Sophia had begun targeting metal-rich areas, dismantling vehicles and infrastructure with ease. Reports came in of entire construction sites being stripped bare overnight, as if devoured by a ravenous force. Dr. Carter sent a team of negotiators to find Sophia and bring her back to the lab. They tracked her to an abandoned mining site, but the encounter went horribly wrong. As the team approached, Sophia emerged from the shadows, her body radiating power. Her voice, once human, now carried a metallic echo. "You want to stop me," she said, her tone devoid of emotion. "But you can't. I've become something else, something that doesn't need your world anymore." In a flash of movement too fast to follow, Sophia shattered their equipment and vanished into the desert once again. Malik's situation had also reached a critical point. The energy surges radiating from his body had grown stronger with each passing day. Entire wings of the lab had been shut down after Malik's electromagnetic pulses fried the power grid for the third time. The scientists tried to contain him, but every attempt at restraint only seemed to amplify his abilities. Malik himself had become consumed by a dangerous mix of pride and paranoia. He believed that his transformation was a gift, proof that he was meant to be more than human. In a desperate bid to prove his superiority, Malik broke free from the lab and headed for the city. Along the way, he left a trail of destruction. Power lines exploded as he passed, and entire neighborhoods were plunged into darkness. When the authorities finally confronted him, Malik stood at the center of a collapsed street, electricity crackling around him like a living storm. "You think you can stop me?" he shouted. "I am energy. I am unstoppable." With a single pulse, Malik disabled every vehicle and weapon within a half-mile radius. Dr. Carter, watching from the lab's control center, felt the weight of failure crushing him. He had created these transformations, pushed the boundaries of evolution too far, and now the consequences were spiraling out of control. But the worst was yet to come. Eva Santos had completed her transformation into something both beautiful and terrifying. Her skin now glowed softly in the dark, and her photosynthetic abilities had reached a level of perfection. But it wasn't just sunlight she absorbed anymore. Eva had begun to draw energy from the earth itself. Plants grew in her presence at an accelerated rate, and the very air around her seemed to hum with life. Yet with this power came a deep, unsettling change in Eva's mind. Eva no longer saw herself as a part of humanity. Her connection to the natural world had become so profound that she now viewed humans as an invasive species, one that needed to be controlled or eradicated for the planet's survival. "I hear the earth crying out," she told Dr. Carter during their final conversation. "We were meant to live in harmony with it. But humanity has poisoned everything. I won't let it happen anymore." Eva left the lab shortly after that conversation, retreating to a dense forest on the edge of the desert. Within days, the forest had grown wildly out of control. Vines wrapped around nearby buildings, trees sprouted in parking lots, and invasive plants spread across highways. Eva had become a living force of nature, unstoppable and determined to reshape the world according to her vision. Dr. Carter knew there was no time left. He gathered a small team of scientists and set out to find the volunteers before the government intervened with force. They tracked Sophia to a remote mountain range, where she had built a fortress of metal from the remains of demolished buildings. Sophia, now fully encased in a metallic shell, watched them with cold detachment. "I am beyond you," she told Dr. Carter. "I am evolution perfected. Leave me be, or I will destroy anyone who tries to stop me." They found Malik standing on the edge of a power plant, absorbing its energy at an alarming rate. His eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and his body pulsed with power. "You should be thanking me," Malik said. "I've become what humanity should strive to be: limitless, untouchable. I'm not going back to that lab." Their final destination was the forest where Eva had made her home. They found her standing at the heart of a grove, surrounded by towering trees and luminous flowers that had never existed before. "The earth is healing," Eva said softly. "But it will not heal with humanity in its current form. You must choose change, or be left behind." Dr. Carter realized the truth in that moment: there was no bringing them back. Sophia, Malik, and Eva had evolved beyond humanity's reach. They were no longer bound by the rules of their old lives. They had become something new, each embodying a different path for the future of life on Earth. Sophia was strength and survival, the ability to endure in the harshest of conditions. Malik was energy and power, unchecked potential that could either create or destroy, and Eva was nature and balance, a force of renewal that demanded harmony with the planet. As the world stood on the brink of chaos, Dr. Carter made one final decision. He returned to the lab and destroyed the remaining OmniDiet serum, ensuring that no more transformations would take place. The experiment had failed, but it had also revealed a new path forward. The volunteers disappeared into the world, leaving behind only myths and rumors. Some said they were gods, others said they were monsters. But one thing was certain: the future of humanity had been forever changed. And in the shadows, new forces were rising, ready to shape the next chapter of evolution.